Hey, welcome to the do's and don'ts of fantasy football. But before we get started, there's something we need to address. Your fantasy football team sucks. Yeah, you heard me right. Your fantasy football team sucks. You did terrible in the draft. You've already made some abysmal trades. And likely you're going to end up the laughing stock of your league, last place, not making the playoffs, and look a little bit like this guy. That might have been a little bit harsh. But now that I have your attention, the least I can do is help you out. So let's get ahead with number one. Do assess the strengths and weaknesses of your team before doing anything. Likely, if you're playing fantasy football, you at least know a little bit. So your team is going to have a little bit of a strength and a weakness. It might not be balanced out, but you're definitely going to be better at some positions than others. This is going to help you assess trades that you need to make and other moves that won't ruin your team going forward. For example, if I have two great receivers and one great running back, I'm not going to trade that one great running back for a great receiver. It just doesn't make sense. It might leave me extremely strong at receiver, but at running back, I'm going to be out of luck. And that's where the team becomes unbalanced and there's nothing really clicking. So, don't. Do not make trades you don't need to make. There's no reason for you to be trading your only good running back for a third great wide receiver. You need to look at your team and make it as balanced as possible. You want your running backs to be just as good as your receivers. And that stays the same with even tight end and quarterback. You just want your team to be completely balanced out, because if you're too power heavy at one position, it likely means that you're not looking too great at another position. So you want your team to be balanced out, and that's going to give you the best possible opportunity to be able to win the championship. Now let's talk about do number two. Make sure you know the value you're sending out in a trade and the value you're getting back. The last thing you want to do is get fleeced. That is the worst feeling in fantasy football, when you get fleeced in a trade and you're like, what did I just do? So, assess the value you're giving out and assess the value you're bringing in. If you feel that the value you're sending out is more than what you're bringing in, it's likely you shouldn't do the trade. It also depends on how it's going to affect your team. I'm sending out a great receiver and maybe a bench player, but I'm getting a really decent running back. And this is the same example we're talking about from before. I'm decent at running back. I only got one good running back, but I'm looking loaded at receiver. I'm willing to overpay and, give up a receiver to be able to balance my team out. So if I give up a little bit of what I'm very good at to be able to balance out my team and get a running back that's going to slide in right there, RB2, and then my team is going to be looking a lot more lively, then it's definitely one of the situations where you would overpay. But in general, you definitely do not want to. You want to either have a balanced trade or possibly get the opponent to overpay. You have to be smart with this. That leads me to don't number two. When making trades in fantasy football, you also need to look at the other team. Don't make trades with opponents whose teams are looking full. Like, they're not going to want to make trades with you if their team is looking stacked. They don't need anything. You want to look at teams that have players that have needs of players that you have. So here's the same situation. Like I said, you have a good running back, but you don't have a great RB2, but you're loaded at receiver. Your main goal should be to find a team that's the opposite. It's a win-win situation. It's a win for you. It's a win for them. They will get a good receiver that you'll send in return, and you'll get a good running back. There, both teams are balanced out. You may say, oh, I don't want to help the other team. Well, it really might be the only situation where you can balance out your own team. So that's something you need to take into account. The final do number three. This doesn't have to do with trades or dropping. You need to look at your lineup week to week. Guys sometimes just be leaving in the same players the entire season, only swapping out for bye weeks. No, you need to assess matchups and which players are most likely to do good each week. If you have a wide receiver that's playing a defense that's been tough on wideouts all season long, and you have a guy on your bench who's playing a defense, he's been decent, but he's playing a defense that's just been god awful, you need to swap those guys out. You need to understand the matchups. And obviously this does not matter, to top 5 picks like CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill and Christian McCaffrey and Breece Hall. But if you have those mid-tier guys who you're saying, who do I start, who do I sit, always try and look for the guy who's got the better matchup. You need to make sure that your lineup is set each and every week and that you have the best possible lineup that you can. Just because you like a guy, he's been doing good, doesn't always mean you should leave him in there versus a tough defense. And number 3, do not give up. That is one of the biggest things in fantasy football. Just because you start 0-2 or 0-3 or 1-1 or 1-2, it does not mean it's the end of the season. You need to stay strong. Don't look at your team and say, oh man, my team sucks. No, do something about it. Like I said, make a reasonable trade, make an intelligent trade, balance your team out. Add something to your team that's going to be able to give you a chance to win. You cannot just sit there on your couch saying, oh my God, my fantasy team is garbage. I can't do anything about it. No, you can do something about it. Talk to the other teams in your league. Make a trade. Maybe your lineup is not, maybe you're not constructing your lineup in the right way. Look at your bench and see who you can move up. This is extremely important. You cannot give up. You need to just keep on going. Anybody can win the championship, and I hope you win the championship. Thank you guys for watching. If I helped you out, please like or subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.